the Barn Burner TV network on ZingoTV channel 250. Don't forget to download the Barn Burner app, ZingoTV app on the respective stores, iOS, Android. They're also available on Roku Sticks, Amazon Fire and TV Sticks, and Smart TVs 2016 forward. This is another edition of the Soccer Show. We got Barn Burner soccer analyst, York Lions head coach, Carmen Asako. And as you see here, he's back. He's a new free agent right here, Matthew Arnone. How you guys doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, Giancarlo.
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Another week here. And Matthew, I want to just start with you because the CPL has a lot of teams now coming up, making new signings, making roster moves. You just announced that you're parted ways with York 9. You're a free agent. So just want to give you the opportunity to share your experience with what was like with York 9 and your message to the fans.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good experience playing in your hometown. I think on a personal level, I don't, looking back, I think hindsight's 2020, but I never really seemed to settle in there, and especially given the short season, I never really got an opportunity to get my feet sort of wet. And but from a club perspective, and speaking with Angus, I think it was a mutual decision, and in the sense that it just wasn't the right fit for either party, and given the circumstances. And obviously the fans were nothing but gracious to me and reaching out and sending me well wishes, and I connected with some of them. Some of them came even to see us off to the Island game. So nothing but positive things to say about the fans and the organization from a front office perspective. Angus and I still hold a pretty good relationship, and our parting was pretty amicable. I don't think there was anything, there weren't any ill feelings towards that. So.
And your experience at the Island Games, I got a chance to talk to a lot of different players there. Overall, do you think that the players are optimistic that this season can start maybe on time, like in March or April? Do you think this is going to be prolonged a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's hopeful. I think in general in our society, there's a general sense of uncertainty, and I think that uncertainty spills over into the sport, right? So I think everyone's hopeful. I think everyone's hopeful that we can follow protocols and we can get this thing under control where everyone feels safe and confident to proceed as normal. Already we're dealing with a little bit of the after effects with this very long off season that would be abnormally long. I think now would be more or less when we a team would be finishing their season, or the CPL finals would be being played right about now. So the season would be officially over now. Meanwhile, because of the Island Games being so short, we've been off for about a month or so. So I think there are certain repercussions to this pandemic, but again, I think everyone's just trying to put it behind them, and myself included. Hopefully, just look forward and obviously be optimistic about the future.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing where you're going to be signing. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of teams coming you and getting your phone calls, slipping in the DMs maybe, saying Matthew Arnone to come sign with us. But I'm going to get you in on this, Carmen, because last night, actually, Manuel Aparicio, first captain in team history, decided he's going to be parting ways with the club as well. A couple hours ago, they released a statement that he signed with Pacific FC. That's official now. So what was it like dealing with him and the kind of player Pacific is going to get?
Manu's a class act all around, and I'm sure Matt would say the same thing. He's a leader by example. He's a fantastic individual. I mean, just a great person, and I think that a lot was put on his shoulders, and at a young age and a young experience. He did really well with dealing with the personalities that he had to deal with. And every time I say his name, it's nothing but praise and respect. And I think that at Pacific, with where a lot of the on and off the field won't sort of fall on his shoulders. I think he'll excel. And he'll be in an atmosphere where he'll make everything around him much better. So, I wish him the best, and I think that he's going to be a great pickup for Pacific for sure.
Yeah, I can agree more. It was some of the highlight reel goals that he scored. Matt, you saw some of them at the Island Games, those TSN, even ESPN versions that they had on their countdown. So it's good to see the CPL in there. But Matt, I'm going to go on to you because Mineframe, you started this off. We got the chance to talk to you after the Island Games. And now that you actually had some months to get it out there and work on some of these programs, what's it been like right now?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the pandemic has a great effect on everyone's ability to foresee the future, right? And with that comes obviously a degree of planning, obviously with the program and implementing the program into already very stable, very fully functioning programs. And where do we kind of fit this program in? So, you know, the response has been nothing but positive. I think everyone generally, especially at a time like this where we are kind of in isolation, we are kind of separated from each other, and even from a sport perspective, frequenting the field less often, right? So there are certain things and certain challenges that come with that. I always equate it to, you know, being a player that would, you know, was trying to push into the pro ranks, and what if there was a pandemic during that time where I didn't have an opportunity to play League One and showcase myself, or I didn't have an opportunity, you know, because the league had canceled due to a pandemic? Where would I show myself? How would I break into that next level? And similarly, you know, for the young athletes that are trying to get scholarships, that are trying to push onto a high performance program, how do they show themselves? How do they prove that they are capable of doing so with, you know, a pandemic and you know, being on the field twice a week rather than 5 times a week? So you know, the need for it, I think, now is greater than ever. I think there's, you know, obviously a certain degree of that uncertainty that allows for a delay in planning, but more or less, I mean, everybody is kind of taking to it, which is fantastic. I think there's a general interest, there's a general focus now in our society on the mental side of life in general, not just in sport, but obviously Mindframe taking it to the sport and hopefully enhancing that experience for everybody.
Yeah, it's good to hear. And like Karma, of course, you've had to deal with now this new norm. What's it like now at the club level in this youth system? Like, are you seeing any updates on organized league play, or is it still like the interleague style of play?
Well, there's no interleague at this point after the new restrictions in York region and Toronto. But I mean, every time you go out there and you're with your group of coaches, you're with your group of players, you're with that, it's such a happy atmosphere, and it's such a good atmosphere and a healthy atmosphere where I think that the government needs to realize this and be proactive in getting us or keeping us at a level of social health and physical health, and realize that this has come through programming and soccer and being at parks and being outdoors, and how the unhealthy things are all related to what soccer and basketball and softball and baseball and football they don't provide. So all those unhealthy things are what those things that are connected to not giving the educators in sport the responsibility to keep this youth, the adolescents, the amateur adults engaged. A perfect example is Matt Arnone came and trained with our group the other day, and he's like, you know what? I've never been so happy. There's Mindframe for you, Arnone. Come to training, bud. So that's what the provincial health people need to realize, that sport is so important, and unfortunately it's programs and programming sports that we've come to, because there's not that, back in my day where we just go play foot hockey or do other things. It's now about giving the sport educators and the sport administrators within the community that ability to give that freshness to the day or to the night. I mean, the kids, whether they know it or not, are going through a lot of crap, whether it's masks, whether it's social distancing, whether it's sitting at their desk, and instead of going outdoors for an hour and a half, it's going outdoors for 15 minutes. All that thing has a negative influence. And the fact that they have soccer at 6 o'clock every Monday, Wednesday, Friday is refreshing. And we need to continue to allow for that. And we need to allow for this to allow for this to be a norm again.
Yeah, and Matt, I'm sure that training session, it kind of brought some sense of normacy. So do you see like a lot of players in the development side looking at, okay, where do I go from here now? Like I'm doing these trainings, but do you see maybe hesitant at all? Like, okay, I'm going to do this training, but I can't risk what I'm going to be doing in 2 months because the future might not be so clear to them.
Yeah, I think that lack of direction, as as Carr mentioned, this is something that if you strip down sport and into what it actually is, regardless of the goals that or the aspirations of the athlete or the individual, is if you strip it down, it's physical literacy, it's physical education, it's physical health that is communicative to the mind, right? And being inside and being trapped, I think we all kind of feel the effects of that in some aspects. So from my perspective, and I equate it to just being outside. I had taken some time off. I had been busy with my own venture, obviously with Mineframe, but I found that naturally my body craved that thing that I love so much, that sport that I love so much, that physical activity, whether it be running outside, whether it be breathing that fresh air, going to North Maple Regional Park and just seeing and having that social aspect that Carmen talked about as well. You're almost deprived of that in a frequency or in a concentration that we're used to, right? I think being a part of the Vaughn program, a lot of the amateur adults, as Carmen put it, they're used to training every single day together. They're used to seeing each other every single day, and likewise for the young adolescents or the high performance OPDL or all the way down to the grassroots level. They're used to seeing each other, and there's a certain development of social relationships that is obviously lagging behind as well as a result of these restrictions. So I think in just to further that point, when you apply a direction to that, like you said, Giancarlo, there's almost these athletes that feel, where's my direction now? Where do I go from here? And as I mentioned with a collegiate athlete, right, there's a critical point where the athlete is trying to go to, whether it be the NCAA, whether it be U Sports, trying to get that scholarship, trying to show themselves for a coach like Carmen, for example, with York University. However, where do they show themselves if there's no leagues? Where do they go, right? So that lack of direction, that lack of seeing a direct pathway to where they want to go in terms of goals and achievements, applies a certain level of mental distress on the athlete as well, right? They put everything into this. I know because I did it, to go to college. I know because I did it to go to the pro ranks. And, you apply everything into this, and sometimes your identity is placed a little bit in that as well. And to be almost legally restricted from doing such a thing, or being able to put yourself in the best position possible to achieve what you feel will bring you happiness, can bring a sort of mental distress as well, which is obviously the concern, I think. But just a parallel to what Carmen said, the physical aspect, if you strip sport down and what it actually is, the education, the breathing of the fresh air, those are all things that are physical experiences but have a profound effect on the mind as well.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You both brought that up, and Carmen, I'm going to ask you this now because you're coaching. You have men and women's side. A lot of them, there's no pro league that's going on right now that they can maybe get contracts in or trials with and get a feel of where they are at the moment. So, I guess, what do you do with the players that you have committed to York right now, the men and women? Like, how do they stay the course to make sure that when eventually sports are back and they're cleared to play, that they're able to make the most of their experience?
We keep it relevant. We keep the program relevant. We keep their development relevant. We keep that connection to the social part and the academic part. We keep it and we keep them competing. Whether it's in training, we keep the level of competition, obviously social distance competition, appropriate, and I think that they push each other to do well. And we talk about our hardest game every year is each other, is against us. So how do we challenge each other to be better? How do we challenge each other to be better people, better players, better, more doing the honest things that are going to make us better? And I think that players like Matt, and before Matt there was players like Frankie Bruno and Jamal and Luca Forno, who kind of set the precedent of what it means to work hard, or what it means to be that type of athlete, or that type of York athlete. So that kind of never subsides, and we keep that honest, And then we bring in examples. We bring examples like Matthew. We bring in examples that have come through York and have been successful or are fighting hard to get more success. And these are things that keep them motivated as well. So it's kind of a conceptual holistic approach of what the program is and how we ensure that they're competing, they're engaged, and they're at the best they can be.
Yeah, and I guess Matt, I'll ask a similar question to you. Being a York athlete, you were involved in that whole process, going through the ranks, class, making sure that you have enough time to train, and then after play on the field, you also had the experience of Father Bersani playing and being on the school team, doing those tournaments. So you never know who's going to be watching. Now, some of these players coming in, they don't have that. So what advice would you give to them to, I guess, better direct them into a path of staying positive to make sure that they don't, I guess, quit soccer?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, Carmen's the biggest proponent of this. I think controlling what you can control. I think, unfortunately, in this pandemic, there's so many things that are changing on a 28-day basis, as we know, when the legislation comes out, or provincially or regionally, that things are changing based on how the pandemic is progressing. And I think, unfortunately, those are things that are out of our control, and the only things that we can do are control those controllables, right? And I think the biggest thing is understanding where your place is in space with reference rather to what you want to, where you want to go, and how do I get there, right? So outlining that path, and ultimately in a time like this, as is any setback, this is a universal setback, I think, in the athlete, in the journey of any athlete. But as is an injury, as is a failure, or perhaps a rejection, it's a setback, and we must readjust our goals, right? We must identify where we are and what is realistic for the near future, right? And once we do that, then we can sort of twist that "I'll never get there" sort of self-talk to "it is now an achievable goal. I just need to perhaps change the timeline," right? If it's going to be, I would like to, be a professional once I graduate from York University. Perhaps setting that, with this, pandemic year, not being able to show yourself at U Sports, perhaps it might be 2022 rather than 2021 where you finally break in. And once you adjust that, make that small adjustment, the goal now becomes relevant and becomes realistic. And therefore, you're allowed to feel that confidence that you'll be able to achieve it, right? I think what happens is that fear of not achieving your goals brings on a whole slew of negative emotions and negative self-talk that can ultimately deter the athlete and also affect their performance. So I think there's a way that we can readjust our goals within our life plan, and ultimately understand the why. Remember the why, right? And I think, as Carmen said, I went out there and I mentioned how happy I was. And I think, being out there after having some time off, it was completely in a raw sense, the happiness that I first experienced as a child. And I think that was a renewed motivation for me now that I want to do it. I want to go again. I'll be out at the next training session. And it's just something that allows me to, on a present day basis, take it one training session at a time, take it one moment at a time, and fully be present and enjoy those moments as well.
It's great advice too for some of these athletes that are listening to this, and you're proof that you can go on to that next level. Just stay committed to it. We're going to go on now to the Italian Serie A, because this league's a little interesting. We have Lazio going up against Juventus, and Matt, I know that that's a team that you like to root for. So will Lazio get this done over Juve?
I think what we're seeing with Lazio a lot, and I think we saw it last time they made an appearance in Champions League, is a big team like Juventus has the depth. They have the players that they've signed specifically for the Champions League, and they have those players that are the weekend performers, the guys that still get the job done at a high level. And where I feel that Lazio, and we're seeing it now with having a great start to their Champions League campaign against Borussia Dortmund, now we're seeing them kind of leg off. We're in a game where they couldn't necessarily field their best 11 because the demands of playing every 3 days, as we know, is quite high, and playing at that level, one can only imagine how hard that is. So as you spread the team a little bit more thin to accommodate both Champions League and Serie A, I think naturally you'll see a dip in performance, and unfortunately Lazio doesn't have the same depth as a team like Juventus does. So they both played midweek, and unfortunately, I don't know what team Lazio will field, but I almost am certain that unfortunately it'll be a bit more inferior to Juventus. But again, the ball's round, and we'll see. I mean, Lazio had the better of them in their season series last year, so I'm optimistic as a fan. But when I break it down on a technical level, obviously Lazio is definitely an underdog.
And Carmen, do you see? I guess Ronaldo, he came back. COVID didn't slow him down too much. He was a bottom of the table team, but he continued that. Their Champions League, and do you see him continuing that against Lazio to really make a statement over Immobile?
Well, he'll need to, especially in the final third, because we all know that Juve is going to have the ball a lot more than Lazio. The more interesting story is going to be the fitness level of Chiellini and Bonucci. Yeah. How are they going to be? And they're important there still. And how are they going to be organizing those counters that Lazio will definitely throw against Juve? And how can they deal with man-even situations, man-up situations? Will they even be in the lineup? So I think those are important questions. I think that the two telling factors are going to be how Lazio defends their box against the likes of Ronaldo, and how Juve can defend the counterattacks and waves of counterattack from Lazio, and obviously the form of the capocannoniere for Lazio last year, and see how if he can exploit the so-called lack of pace of the Juventini center backs. So I think those are the telling factors. But everyone forgets that the first place, if Sassuolo beats Udinese, they go top of the table, young man. Sassuolo. Yeah. Sassuolo. Yes. So, I mean, yeah, this league has been crazy. There's so many stressors and for the professional player that we forget. We forget that they still have to travel. We forget that their routine gets kind of screwed up. And on top of that, they've got to worry about getting COVID. They've got to worry about their own health and how that's going to affect them. So there's so many factors right now that work on the psyche of the player, and the psyche of the group. And I think that it's been a little more obviously affecting more teams than others, and Juventus has been one of those teams affected for sure. So we'll see. I think the key factors are what they are. I think Juventus has to be a better footballing team to break Lazio down. I think Lazio has to be very good in the back, very good defending the box. And I think that defending in the attack is going to be very important for Juve to keep Lazio in their end, and not let Capocannoniere score goals or get free.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point there about Sassuolo, because Domenico Berardi, I feel like, is finally living up to that potential of being an emerging star, like a pillar for Italian national team going forward. I'll go with you, Matt, because the Euro selection committee is going to be looking at this, and Italy, and his name has been brought up in the past, but he hasn't really made that senior squad for a major tournament. So do you think this is going to be the right time? And do you think Domenico Berardi could be making a statement on the national team?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no question, especially with the initial success and the next camp and the next call-ups. It's all about who's in form. And I think if you're a wise coach, you know that, and you know that perhaps the profile of a player is irrelevant, especially in a two-game Europa League European League qualifier, or Nations League, or whatever the case may be, right? And those games are critical, and you can't really drop points as Italy has been prone to do in these games. So I think you got to go with the hot hand. I think you have to go with who's in form. And if I can touch on another player who's been absolutely lights out for Sassuolo, and for me, every game I check his pass completion, I check his tackle success rate, his interceptions, and how what a warrior he's been for Sassuolo. And he's the cog. I think we all know it. He's been the best player for me in Serie A. Is Manuel Locatelli. He's come leaps and bounds from his days at Milan. I think they're kicking themselves now that they let him walk, and obviously he's property of Juventus. So I mean, he's really taken a step forward, and I think if we're talking about any Sassuolo player as a lock for the national team, he's if I was the coach, he'd be one of the first calls I make. So.
And Carmen, same to you. Like those are two
big names for Sassuolo and have been leading to the success. Do you see them continuing this and going on to the national team?
I think that they're going to be definite considerations. I do think that Locatelli is still a young, and this experience with Sassuolo is giving him a lot of just situational experience. But the national team situational experiences are still a different level. Is he at the level of a Barella? I'm not so sure yet. Is he gonna help in situations of the game? Yes. Does Mancini have some tough decisions to make? Yes, but is the fact that he's 22 years old going to be a plus for him? Absolutely. So he's a young man. He's still young and experienced, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But he does fit the characteristics of the Mancini player right now, for sure.
Yeah, and as we go on this final segment here before John Nelson of OSG Sports in Atlanta joins us, I'll ask you this, Matthew. In your time growing up as a soccer player in the youth system and watching around the leagues in the world and looking at different players, which player or players would you really go out of your way to watch and sit down and say, okay, if that guy's playing, I have to watch it and just see like what he does on the field?
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I always watched. I was a forward until I was, my third year of university before Carmen had his bright idea to switch me to center back. But I would watch a player based on situational. I mean, growing up, it was always Alex Del Piero. Growing up, it was making that switch rather to center back and understanding my player profile and what I wanted to be like. Growing up into my adult life and collegiate athlete career, it was Leonardo Bonucci. And when Carm told me to go play midfield, it was Miralem Pjanic. So I mean, there's always kind of players that I tried to replicate in the way that fit my player style. I mean, I couldn't go and as a forward think I was Ronaldo and start watching what kind of things he was. I wasn't that type of profile. So you always try to find a way to understand who is very like in terms of your strengths and obviously at a lower level, try to mimic that, right? And try to understand what you do well. And do the simple things well, right, Carm? And always do the simple things well. So something I learned later in my career, but yeah, watching these kinds of players and always being a Serie A fan, looking to unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say, the top team in Serie A for many, many decades was Juventus, right? And having those top world-class players come through is who better to learn from, right?
Yeah, same with you. Like we were growing up in the same time, similar age. So Del Piero for me was that, even like Ronaldinho, like looking at how he would make everyone look like an amateur on the field, look like a video game, and then maybe the partying got up to him. But Carmen, you're still very young.
Yeah,
but growing up, who are some of the players that you would really go out of your way to watch?
You've never heard of some of these players. They're all old men right now. I mean, actually, one of the best experiences was when Lazio. I spent about 2 weeks with the Lazio program when they were kind of at their best with Nedved and Claudio Lopez and players of that ilk. They were just an amazing team to watch going forward. It was the first kind of time. Dino Zoff was the coach who I used to watch. I watched him play as well a long time ago, and so yeah, showing my age. But yeah, so I mean, actually, those teams and the way they played three up top, and Veron, how he kind of dealt with all those situations with the ball, and that team was just fantastic to watch. Tactically, they were just a team that played to strengths, and their top three of Nedved, Lopez, and Podolski, back in the day, who was just direct. It was a different type of play in that transition from the 90s kind of total football idea. This was kind of a mixture of very direct play, especially in the top three, and that gave me a lot of insight to how the game evolves. And I really took a lot of information and a lot of planning on player profile planning from that group of players that won Serie A. at last. Ironically enough, Matthew.
2000. It was
Huh?
2000.
2000, yeah. That's when I was there in 2000, 2001.
Wow.
It's a long time ago.
That's interesting. And just even hearing you talk about some of these players like that are going on, even like Nedved going on to a managerial position and front office position. In terms of coaches, though, who are you modeling your coaching style after? Did you want to be the guy on the sideline, like a Conte, running up on the sidelines and stirring it up, or were you more the calm guy that looks at some of these coaches and feeling, you know what, that's a better way to approach it?
Can I answer or no?
Yeah, I'll get you to answer that first, Matthew.
Sure, go ahead, Matthew.
I think
you can tell them about my calm dispositions and my very cerebral halftime speeches and
it depends what part of the season we're in, right? So Carm would start off as the calm, cool. You know, he would obviously, this playing style never changed, right? He wants us to play our football. We grow up playing our football through tough games, not so tough games. You know, when he was cool in those games, the regular season, playoffs came around, he became Conte on the sideline running up and down. But other than that, told us to get back one time when we scored in double overtime. He wanted us to get back in position rather than celebrate the goal. So I remember that one, but that's okay. The nerves get into us, but the football never changed. The philosophy of football never changed. So I was happy with it. I enjoyed playing, and it was some of the most fun times I had in my career to date. I mean, professional or otherwise, those are my favorite moments of my soccer career. So.
Giancarlo, Matthew kind of, you know, he shaped his life around someone called Dominic Gulo. So his mentality of how to live life is based on Dominic Gulo. So, you know, we could get into many stories about that, but we probably need a different audience.
Was that a fair analysis of your coaching halfway through the season?
You know what? Unfortunately and fortunately, a lot of these. I hope these guys know how invested I am in them and the team and their success, and how invested I am. And it kind of comes out in not so rational ways at times. But I do mean the best for them and for the group and for us. So. Yeah, I mean, I'm not always the most put together emotionally. I'm not always the most put together tactically. I'm not always the most. But the one thing I do is I care massively for my players and my staff, and I want them to be proud of themselves as well. And that doesn't take a master technician or a master motivator. It's just about them being proud of who they are and taking the steps on and off the field to be proud of who they are. So, you know, I'm that's the thing that I'm most proud of. And that's the thing that, you know, I would say, I hope people say about me that I cared about every kid on the team. I cared about their dogs. So yeah. So, you know, it's so that's important for me. So whether it's yelling and screaming, whether it's wanting the best out of them, whether it's emotional or cerebral, there's whether it's planned or not planned, there's that the only consistency is that the mentality of caring for them, caring for the group, and making sure that we get the best out of them and they're proud of what they do.
Yeah, and it shows. If anyone disputes that, just look at all the banners, look at all the championships that you won over there, and those speak for themselves. But on that note, Matthew, really appreciate you taking the time and coming on here. How can we follow you on social media and get up to date with Mineframe?
Yeah, so you can follow us at Mineframe Fit on Instagram, on Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as Facebook. So it's pretty much the same everywhere. My personal account is Arnone Matthew 23 on Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. And yeah, I mean, obviously you can stay up to date. We post regularly. We even post some meditations, whatnot, some workouts for you know, the kids, for anyone really to sort of train their mind daily. So that's about it.
Yeah, it's recommend that follow. See regularly all those posts, really positive, and appreciate all you're doing with that, because there's a lot of athletes, in the youth system that look to that and helps them stay the course, stay in some sense of normacy. So we appreciate that and appreciate you taking the time here, and we wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks for having me. See you, Carm. Take care.
In a few
And
hours.
yeah, I'll be on whenever you guys are willing to have me. It's always a pleasure. Thank you again.
Definitely. We're waiting on when you sign that contract. We'll be the first ones waiting on
I'll let
your
you guys break the news. How's that?
Oh, sounds good. That's Matthew Arnone. He is in-demand free agent. So remember that when this show's over, you can follow him on all those social media platforms and give him a contract offer. He's waiting on that. Thanks a lot, Matthew.
Take care, guys.
As we wait in on John Nelson, who's in the waiting room, it seems. So just waiting on Eduardo. You can let him in. John wants to come in. I think he has something to say about your coaching methods, Carmen. I think he agrees. But as we wait for him to come in, we'll get on to MLS and TFC. Inter Miami was an interesting game for them where they had to really be tested there. Higuain, then Federico Higuain, who's been a guy that has been a thorn in Toronto FC's side for a decade. He comes in, he's not able to score. Just what did you see out of Toronto's performance?
Situational, okay. Obviously, Akinola made a big difference, not only in that situation, in that goal, but just a kind of a reference point that they're used to, whether it was Josie, whether it's Io. But I think that he made a massive difference in that one situation. And I think that Toronto was okay, was decent. But I think that Inter Miami kind of wasn't good enough in the most important times and moments of the game, and they didn't finish. I thought that if you look at the result and the game, tie would have probably been fair, but I wouldn't have been surprised if Inter Miami won that game, because they, for me, were the better individuals and created more situations where they should have won the game. Toronto was the more properly prepared team. They were stable. And again, it wasn't a grand performance by any means by them, but they just dealt with the situations without the ball. It was ho-hum. And then they had a one moment of brilliance from Akinola that kind of solidified it for them.
Do you think Gonzalo Higuain did enough there? Because a lot of people are looking at him like this is a guy who should be putting up almost a goal per game average, it seems, with the way his quality and finishing ability. So what did you think about him?
No, I think he asserted himself on the game. There's other games where I'd be really critical of him. Against Toronto FC, I thought he was the best player on the field, to be honest. And I think that, you look at their other DP in Pizarro, I think that you could question his. I mean, he had some actions in the box where he should have been better at, whether it's the final pass or the final ball. I think that part of it was missing, but I thought Higuain kind of tried to put the team on his shoulders, and I thought he was very good. I mean, in the end, they got done by a controversial PK. For me, not a PK, but a controversial PK, and I think that. And they still have a chance, right? I mean, decision day is going to be fantastic in the MLS. Decision day is going to be is going to be in the East. Obviously, the West is kind of dealt with already, but the East and Montreal, DC United, Inter Miami, they all have a chance. They all have a chance to get to that postseason, and you never know what happens when they do get in there. So yeah, lots of great stories, and I think Inter Miami. I think they're scratching their head because that was one of their best games of the year.
Yeah, and you look at Toronto FC, Larea came in, that PK they were talking about, just used his pace, his positioning. Do you think he'd be better suited as an attacking player, or do you like him in the back four?
Well, who's to say he's not an attacking player? I mean, you look at Toronto FC's tendencies in attack, and you're going to look to make sure that he doesn't get the ball, or he doesn't get the ball in those attacking situations. You said it yourself. He won the PK. He gave Piatti the ball in the last minute against Atlanta for the header. He's been on the end of action. So whether you're playing on the score sheet as a right back, but the reality is they get forward quite well, and he gets forward quite well, and they get forward with their wing backs quite well. So it is an attacking position as far as I see.
And then looking forward, like Ralph Priso, a lot of people were talking about him, young player coming in, first MLS start. Do you think he showed that he belongs in the starting 11?
I think he was clean. He showed that he's not a good player. You always fear that what happened to Telfer, what's happening to Schaffelberg will happen to a kid like Priso, it's just there's so many good players in the TFC system that, because there's good players in front of them, very good players in front of them, they're not going to get the amount of reps. And I think Priso needs reps. I think he did give away balls in certain situations. I think that he will be a very good MLS player. And I think that in this situation right now, it's great for him to be with these players every day, and he's going to learn from them and grow from them. But is he going to get enough time with a midfield that's, polluted with talent?
Yeah. And we finally got John in. He's been in the waiting room, waiting patiently. We had Matthew Arnone on free agent, and now we bring in John Nelson, OSG Sports. How you doing, John?
Yeah, I saw the stuff with Matthew early on. Very, very good. I see Coach is rocking the CPL shirt. That's very, very nice. I figured
as Edmonton hires an American GM, we are one.
Well, but also the fact that Forge FC is now going to play Arcahai, out of Haiti, and they've got a good shot of getting into the semifinals in CONCACAF League.
Amazing. And Taro has given MLS teams fits and actually beat MLS teams. It's the top team in Panama, and we haven't talked about that at all. And thank you for bringing it up, John. Forge was excellent. And like you look at the old adage, you are one, you are many. That's what Forge is right now. They're not just Kyle Becker, who had a okay performance. They're a very good group put together by a coach that's, is proven himself very well. So, I mean, hats off to Bobby, hats off to the leadership crew of Hamilton, who beat a solid Taro team in Panama.
Yeah, and speaking of Forge, like they're going to be playing Toronto FC. We're still waiting on the MLS season to end before they really get into scheduling that. But John, from what you're able to, I guess, see out of the CPL sides and Toronto FC, I'm sure you saw like what they've been able to do at the CONCACAF level and against other sides. Do you see this being, as some people say, a wake-up call for Forge of not being at that level yet, or do you see this being an even matchup that's going to surprise a lot of analysts?
Well, it's going to come down to the lineups when they get trotted out. How seriously does Greg Vanney take it, and what's the lineup going to look like? So for me, that's first and foremost. So specifically when it comes to result, get to be like an hour and a half before the match itself when it goes down, so I can see the lineup and how seriously it's taken. And then if Forge is there for 60 or 70 minutes and the lineup was rotated for Toronto FC, then does Greg Vanney throw in as much firepower as possible to try to get a result? But no, I think that looking in the immediate, let's look in the immediate and look at how Forge has worked their way to this point, because I think that, in looking at the bracket, you sit there and you're going, okay, you got some quality work done on the road, and in CONCACAF, doesn't matter if it's league, Champions League, does not matter. When you go on the road in CONCACAF league play, it is intimidating environments and across the board. But, in the current environment that we're in with COVID-19, I think that not having fans in these venues is an equalizer for these roadsides, because, when you're looking at a matchup, just to give you an example, last night, when you're looking at, a Saprissa, when you're looking at a Managua FC going on the road in a very tough environment, eventually losing to Olympia 6-0. But Yeah, that was definitely when you have two sides that are outclassed. But when you're an Olympia and you're playing Motagua, when you're an Alawalense and you're having to go up against folks in that region, when you're a Saprissa and you're at home, these home field advantages are tremendous in CONCACAF play. But because you don't have fans, Forge is taking advantage of something like this, and you're getting further than you probably would if fans were there, just because of the officiating and environments and all those kinds of things, all those intangibles that play into it. I think that this is a great building block for Forge, no matter where the season ends for them. And it's what you do from here as a club, both in CPL and in CONCACAF. What do you do from here? That to me is the greater question. Once the season's over in hemispheric play, take stock of what you've done, but how do you build from here? Where do you invest? Where are your holes? What do you think you need to work on as a side? Those kinds of things. I think this is a great learning experience for a club like Forge getting this deep into a competition.
Yeah, I agree there. And especially it's kind of surprising a lot of people because the CPL, like last year, what we saw, like Calvary, I thought it was a really solid overall side, but Forge ended up beating them in the final. And Carmen got to witness that firsthand. He played both those teams in the way York 9 played Calvary versus the way they played Forge. You saw the way that Forge came out, and their midfield, I think, with Becker makes them a solid group. But Carmen, do you see something here where Forge might be able to use that to their advantage, knowing that Sigma connection there and having Becker playing at this level at the moment? Do you think that will help him against Toronto?
I do, but I also think it's the additions they've made to the group that have fit in so well. You know, a Knutson who came from University of Albany, a Belgian player, or a Nikoto Jonsson, how they fit in. David Edgar, how he's fit into the mix and help that group grow. Or Anthony Novak, who's scored incredible goals for Forge and incredible time goals. So I think that all those little factors are going to make the game for TFC. And I do think they're going to, I'm assuming that everything MLS will be over by the time they play because they're talking about December. I do think that they better take this serious because I think Hamilton and all those times where you roll your eyes at Nanko or Dominic Samuel or this person, well, they've proven themselves over and over and over, and they've earned the respect that they have for sure.
And you think, like, imagine the reaction? Like, let's say Toronto FC goes in, they take them kind of lightly, and Forge beats them. Do you think there's going to be a panic for MLSE and saying, okay, this was our opportunity to get back to the Champions League and we let it slip?
A panic. It's all in front of them right now. They have everything to control. And I think that this is one, and our community, our soccer community, this is, first of all, what Forge is doing is amazing for our community, amazing for our league. But this is one where you need to say, hey, you have no chance. This is the no chance mentality that TFC has to bring, and they have to put their best out there and do their best to whoop their ass, because right now there's a lot of people saying that, you know what, maybe that Canadian player, maybe there's a bunch of Osarios out there that they haven't looked at, and maybe those Osarios like Becker and Samuel and Amua, they're going to show how they deserve to be there. So it's a scary thing. They're playing with a massive chip on their shoulder, and I'd like to see our no holds barred UFC battle between Forge and TFC, and I want TFC to bring their best, so the best will be brought out of Forge, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's going to be even good for the CPL going forward, because let's say they have a real good game, real back and forth, even if Toronto wins, but if Forge takes them to the limit, that's going to put a lot of attention to the CPL season coming up, and I think they need that, especially after the Island games being so far away from when their target date is. But I'm going to go on to MLS here, decision day. John, there's a lot of games that's going to come down to, especially in the East, the positioning of some teams might change after this weekend. What match are you really looking forward to?
Choice D, all the above. I mean, if you're not, but think about it. When you come to everything in the East, obviously you're looking at the Supporter Shield. You're looking at Toronto's match. You're looking at Philadelphia's match. ABC here in the States, has basically decided, okay, we're going to flex this out. And so they have the opportunity with Philadelphia's game to sit there and lay out the possibility of a supporters shield domestically should Philadelphia get a better result than Toronto. And I know that a lot of folks up there, they're going to be locked into the Toronto game. But I mean, when you look at the East, you're looking at standings, and 1 and 2 have something to play for. 3, 4, 5 have something to play for. Then there's the action, obviously 5 teams, 2 spots trying to get in at the 9 and the 10. But honestly, anything in the East, you can look at any match and sit there and go, well, yeah, this one has relevancy applied to these. And so any match in the East, all those 330 or 340 kicks, because they want everybody to launch at the same time, those are the ones that I'm looking at. And then obviously at the top of the table in the West, because you're looking at Sporting. As of right now, Sporting is still scheduled to play. If they don't, remember, the West is points per game on your determination for your playoff seedings. Right now, Sporting is at 1.8. If they don't play, then obviously that's where they're locked in. And I was doing this math earlier on. And so, of course, okay, so here's your math in the West, just to give you an idea. If Sporting plays, they have a 1.8 that could be in jeopardy. If they play and draw, Sporting drops to 1.76. If Portland wins, they're at 1.78. If Seattle wins, they're at 1.77. So literally, that's what you've got in play with the top 3 teams if they're all playing in the West. FC Dallas and Minnesota, those two could flip-flop when it comes to points per game. LAFC could possibly get their way into 5th. Colorado, for them, it could be 7, could be 8. San Jose could jump them depending on what happens with Colorado. So you've got a lot of stuff in play here when it comes to this last game of the regular season. I'm just glad, frankly, that not every match is starting at 3:30 Eastern time. So that way we have the Eastern ones at 3:30 and the Western ones at 6:30. So it's going to be a long day, and quoting T.O., get your popcorn ready.
That was good. The math there, like John King on CNN.
Because, well, we worked on it this morning on Soccer Down Here, and we were trying to figure out, okay, here's what's going on, in the East. Philadelphia, Toronto, you're tied at 44. Okay, great. Orlando City, you're at 41. If you win, you go to 44. That's a 12th win. So, Orlando, they would still lose out on being the 2 seed because they wouldn't have as many wins as Toronto or Philadelphia. Philadelphia and Toronto, obviously, right now identical at 13, 4, and 5. Orlando's kind of stuck at being the 3, but if they lose and Columbus beats Atlanta United, then Columbus gets to 41. They have 12 wins. Then they would jump Orlando City. Orlando City, once again, they would be the 4. So the 3 or the 4 for Orlando City. Possibly for Columbus, it could be the 3 that's in play. They could be at the 4. If NYC goes to Chicago and beats Chicago, then Chicago's probably not in the playoff picture. NYC could be at 39 points. If Columbus loses to Atlanta United, Columbus Crew drops to the 5. NYC goes to the 4. Then you have the Red Bulls going at it, and Nashville at 29. I think the 7 and the 8 are pretty much decided. But yeah, so it's basically 1 through 5. Then 6 and 7, the Rebs and Nashville, they're kind of there. Then the 5 teams for 2 spots in the East, and then all of the math in the West. And so you're looking at, of the 20 teams that are going into the postseason, matchups really could determine 18 of the 20 positions on the weekend. And I know I just gave Carmen a headache.
No, that was brilliant. That was why you deserve awards. That was amazing.
There it is. There's your math right there from this morning.
Yeah.
A lot of positions up for grabs over there.
But, Giancarlo, the one thing I learned when I made my transition from Canada to the University of Maryland, I just got there and they had a national championship with like 52 overtimes. Okay. Wow. I believe it was Virginia and Santa Clara. So whatever happened to the value of winning games, whatever happened to the value of winning games, like the value of winning the game? Vancouver has as many wins as I'm not saying they deserve to be there, but Vancouver has as many wins as probably the middle table. They've lost a lot, but they won a decent amount as well. So, I mean, it's totally going against the values of the US. You have to have a winner. So the value of winning a game has taken a back seat. And then I see the LA Raiders losing a draft pick and then
$500,000. You find John Gruden $150,000 for violations of protocols. Yeah.
So, but in Colorado, we say, oh, it's okay. It wasn't your fault. Or we say that you haven't done. So, I mean, that part of it, I know it's not in the spirit of the game and it's probably uncontrolled, but still, one professional organization is accountable for it. The other one is not. So there's a lot of questions here. But my one thing that I will fight for in Vancouver is, you know what? They won games. They won more games. I know they don't deserve to be there, absolutely, as far as their quality of play, but they won games. And, you know, when I first got the biggest culture shock was, you know, that when I was used to having that tactical tie, but it wasn't like that in the NCAA. It was about winning overtimes until you win. So, you know, there's my little bit of an argument. I'm not going to go on with the algorithms that you use, John, which were fantastic, but I will just say my piece and move away.
It's called having a calculator on your phone.
All I have on my phone is this Zoom thing, and I'm just learning how to use it now.
He doesn't even have the Twitter.
No.
And like looking at I saw like LAFC Portland is looking like a matchup that if you're gonna look in the playoffs as a team that like can get a lot of momentum out of here. I'll ask you this first, Carmen. Is LAFC, like, if they don't win this game and they just come in and maybe even squeak in a draw, is that going to be disappointing on their momentum going into the playoffs?
No, I mean, just getting there is right now. Now it's about preparation for them. I think it's about preparation and about getting people healthy and getting Vela the reps that he needs. So, and I think it's solidifying a midfield that went from like probably the best in the league to, you know, not so good. You know, like Atuesta is one of the best players in the MLS. Don't get me wrong, but the people around him haven't done the work that the Mark Anthony Kays would do. So, you know, they've got a lot of question marks and they've got a lot of preparation to do. And I think that that's what this game is. How are we going to prepare for that next game? What's going to be our identity? Where are we going to be on the field? Are we going to be dropped off? Are we going to try to win a 1-0 game, or are we going to continue to try to win games 6-5? So
it's going to have to be the latter because they don't have the defense to do anything 1-0.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I agree. But do you drop your team off into the box, the final third, and leave Vela and Rodriguez?
Bradley's DNA, though. I don't think it is.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But you know, coaches, and I've been through this with professional teams a lot. When it gets to that point of the season, we're like, oh, we're predictable. What do we got to do to change? What do we got to do to fix it? What do we got to do to make ourselves better? So maybe I'm thinking that way, but you're right. It's not in their DNA.
That's what's won teams MLS Cups in the past. I just don't think that it's in Bob Bradley's DNA, and I don't think it's in LAFC's DNA to try and be more defensive if you don't have the defensive firepower there to help you. When you have issues between the sticks and Bob Bradley can't sit there and figure out on a game-by-game basis if he wants Kenneth Vermeer or Pablo Cisniega in net, that to me is a problem. When you've got a back line, and although one of the, you've had a recent acquisition help out at the back, I think that the depth is an issue. I think that you never really replaced Walker Zimmerman when you traded him to Nashville. I thought that was a great deal for Nashville. You got a lot of resources back if you're LAFC, but you never replaced Walker Zimmerman. Tristan Blackman is not Walker Zimmerman. And when you have Jordan Harvey, who's a part of the discussion, when you have Dejan Jakovic, who's a part of the discussion, and they can be beaten with speed around their edges, to me, that's an issue at the back for LAFC. Brian Rodriguez has been an issue for me offensively for LAFC. Traditionally, outside of this season, and I know that they're getting Carlos Vela healthy, to me, LAFC has never won the big game, especially on the road in a two-legged final. This year, LAFC away from home won 6-1. Yes, at Bank of California, they're great, and they built it into a fortress, but I see too many issues with LAFC to get to the promised land of playing for a championship.
Yeah, I agree. I concur totally. I'm just putting on the coach's hat.
No, as you should. But like I said, I think that your approach of being pragmatic and changing and understanding what's going on around you late in the regular season and getting you ready for a playoff run just isn't Bob Bradley's. That's not his MO. That's not on his CV. He seems to want to be very stubborn in his ideals. And damn the torpedoes, this is who we are, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to win this way. And more often than not, that's great in the regular season. It's like they're the Tom Glavine of Major League Soccer, or the Atlanta Braves of Major League Soccer from the 1990s. Great in the regular season, you get to the postseason, and everything goes away.
Bobby, great manager, though.
Yeah.
You know, Carlo, you remember Bobby Cox with the Jays?
No, he doesn't remember Bobby Cox.
No, he doesn't remember.
I don't. For this conversation, I'll remember him, but yeah.
Okay.
But and just in talking like LAFC, like I remember last year, just the season they had, and I think it was a little bit disappointing because you have a team that was that offensive, and you look at like they should be winning the MLS Cup, putting all these points up in the season, and I think it's disappointing. That was their biggest opportunity. So, John, like, what do they do now this year if they don't win it?
That's the question. I mean, I think honestly, when you look at LAFC, it's shore up the back. Yes, I think that Diego Rossi, if there are clubs in the European theater or in South America or in Liga MX that want Diego Rossi, I think that Rossi, I honestly thought Diego Rossi would have been gone long before now. I think that if a club in South America or in Europe wants Brian Rodriguez, you take the deal. I think if someone wants Diego Rossi, you take the deal. I think it's been far too long for something like that to anticipate, but you've got to shore up the back. You've started doing that, but I think that Bob Bradley has to be comfortable with a goalkeeper, and I think that you've got to get younger at the back, and I also think that you have to add those depth pieces, because when I look at LAFC's roster, and this is something that's been universal throughout their run in MLS, Bob Bradley, for me, only seems comfortable about player 14 or 15 on a game day roster. It's like right there at the edge of 3 subs. And then from there, it's bringing in academy kids. It's 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old academy kids that he has to bring in out of necessity that don't help things out. So I think that the biggest thing to answer your question, if the transfers are there, take them, reinvest it in your firepower, but you got to get yourself help at the back.
Yeah, I agree. Like their back line, like they have everything. Even Bradley, like Wright Phillips, when they got him, I thought that was going to perfect off the bench signing, but doesn't really do anything in the back line. And Carmen, I'll ask you this. There's another manager, just speaking of that game, Matias Almeida. San Jose were able to get the job done there. They had a pretty up and down season. They have the points though, but do you think he will look around and seeing maybe other offers other than San Jose next season?
San Jose isn't necessarily a lock every year to make the playoffs by any means, and they're getting a little older. And I think that with that transition, he may not be the most appropriate manager for the group transitioning. As I think that an American manager who understands the landscape, who understands the quality of the California player and the San Jose academy player, which has had some success. I think that's the type of manager you bring in moving forward. That's going to kind of, and obviously they've brought in some players that Almeida has worked with before, that he's comfortable with. And I'm not so sure that group is going to stay together for much longer. So I think it's, a feather in his cap that he's, Wondolowski, he's done well by him. Salinas just broke the record for assists. And there's a lot of good stories there, but I think that it's time to rebuild with a new mentality, new people, and someone who's more familiar with the MLS landscape will make a difference. But you never know, because they haven't had stability in a long time at San Jose. So, and is Almeida the one that brings the stability? Right now, I don't see it on or off the field.
Yeah, similar question to you, John. Like Almeida as a player, great things about him, accomplished a lot going into coaching, had a nice year last year. This year, they're not really looking like the team that especially the quality they have. So do you think he'll look around and maybe entertain other offers?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that honestly, when it comes to San Jose, it just comes down to the resources that the front office wants to give Almeida to build a team in his image. And I still think that there are players there that there are players he'd like to bring in to help things along. But you've seen, you know, like in the game against Seattle, where they were just beaten from pillar to post in transition, and it got very, very ugly very, very quickly. I think that if Almeida is given the resources to chase after the players he wants, I still think that this is a roster in transition, and not every piece is one that he is, that integrates well with his particular way of approach when it comes to how he wants to do things, 90 minutes of hell or what have you. So I just think that if he's given resources, if he's given more players, I think that they can do better in the transfer market. But at the same time, I think that if there are other offers, it would not surprise me if Almeida tried to entertain them, because, I mean, if you think about what he's been able to accomplish in a very short period of time with limited resources and with what the tools he has on hand, he hasn't been able to go on Amazon and get the toolkit that he wants, have it delivered, and so he can sit there and build the addition to the house. Right now, he's stuck with the old toolbox and the tool master that's there, and having to work with what's there in the garage instead of being able to have things shipped to him that can help advance things along.
Yeah. So he's another, it's going to be a storyline that for sure once this season's over. As we go on now to EPL, I'm going to start off with you, Carmen. Arsenal got the job done against Man United. Is this something where Man United, it's just a rough day at the office, or is it something you should be worried about?
I mean, you worry about the team consistency. That's stating the obvious. I mean, they go and they beat PSG in France, and then they come home and, lose to Arsenal in the way they lost to Arsenal. They got beat up all over the field. There wasn't even a good effort. It wasn't even a game where they did to themselves. So, like, it's sad to see that's how a team of, that's supposed to be the best in the world and and have the best players in the world to react. And I'm not pointing the finger at Solskjaer, but I'm definitely pointing the finger at the naivety of the group so far. And then they go and lose to Demba Ba. Demba Ba is probably as old as Bobby Cox there, Giancarlo.
Well,
there's a name I know, Demba Ba. I remember him.
Trivia. Here's your piece of trivia where Başakşehir is concerned. And by the way, the defending on that goal for Demba Ba was horrendous. Demba Ba is actually 5 years older than the club he plays for. Demba Ba is 35, but Başakşehir is only a 30-year-old club, and it's owned initially by the municipal water company in Turkey. They are basically a state agency-owned club when they were started 30 years ago. But Demba Ba and Martin Skirtle, both 35, both on Başakşehir's roster.
Skirtle's another one. Like, what does it say to this group?
And they beat Manchester United. And you look at things, and Manchester United hasn't had this bad of string results since who knows when, 70s. I don't know how long it's been since they've had a string of these results, especially in the Premier League. I mean, losing at home to Tottenham the way they lost to Tottenham. They have not won at home yet in the Premiership. Not that it means anything in this COVID reality, but still, they have not won at home, I believe, in the Premiership. And this is Manchester United. So, you look at Keane's comments, and you look at all those situations, and you know how he's usually very critical of everything. But there is some heat to what he's saying and what the group needs to do. So, and this is a group of very good players that are underperforming. So, like, I'm at a loss for words to understand why. I mean, the way they finished, they won 10 games on the road in a row. The way they were playing, and to have this type of letdown is inexcusable. Inexcusable.
So then if they lose to Everton, do you fire Ole?
Um, that's 3 in a row. There's a meeting for sure. There's a meeting for sure. And you just look. I look for a reaction in the players. But you know what? Whether it's his fault or not, that will be the simplest solution.
But then who do you, well, and then Pochettino is he was
Pochettino's on his heels, and you know he'll what he's done with a good team to make them put them in the Champions League final. You know, he comes with some pedigree, that's for sure.
And just even looking around, like when you see what Man United has been able to do, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but Sarri, do you look at him?
no.
Oh no.
No. This is Pochettino is probably going to go to one of two places, and the guys on soccer over there and Jason brought this up. If it's not Manchester United, I think it's Inter. I think that with Conte, you know, he's kind of setting his own world on fire, and so I think that if it's not going to be Manchester United, I think that once Conte goes, it goes to Inter.
See on that, I have a feeling like they would do, if all the teams in the world, Manchester United, I think would be that team to go, you know what, let's play Sarri ball.
No,
let's give this a
no. I think it's Pochettino's if it's not Ole.
Going on to the weekend, because we have a lot of teams here. Everton's going to be in action with Man United, Chelsea and Sheffield United. Leicester, who was really impressive, they're going to be taking on Wolves. But big game, Man City, Liverpool, two teams, John, that I'm pretty sure should be at the top two. They had some struggles now, but do you see this being a draw?
Yeah, I do. That's how I think that the number that was attached to Liverpool to win on the road, I think was a plus 240.
Yeah.
And Manchester City to win at home was even money. That to me is a large number for Liverpool to win. And I think the draw was in and around plus 225 or somewhere in there. I think that it's a draw more than anything else.
And Carmen, do you think they'll be more reserved in this game? Like better just get a result to get some momentum back?
Again, I'm not convinced about Manchester City. De Bruyne just coming off of injury. I don't think that Jesus is the answer. Mahrez has been absolutely average. Torres has been okay. I just think that Liverpool's got too much, and I think that it's a definite statement game right now. And you know, the only thing is the Raheem Sterling factor, and the fact that Van Dijk, and I mean, they're getting a semblance of organization, and you know, Joe Gomez could have a day any day. So all those things. I think that Liverpool is the better team. I think that Liverpool should win the game, but I think that Liverpool has some question marks, obviously, at center back and Matip's fitness, and you know, Firmino, he's going to come back in because Jota's been on fire, but because Klopp is the manager he's going to bring Firmino back in and expect an amazing game from him and a motivated game from him. But you don't know, because his quality and his performance have been so inconsistent.
Yeah. And final topic here in the last portion of this show. Gonna go to Barcelona because everybody's favorite director resigned. Is Messi still at the door, John, or is this just?
Yes. Well, Victor Font has said that they're going to try and do everything possible to keep Messi. When you needed to trim, or at least I think you needed to have a plan in place to trim close to 200 million euro on your books by yesterday, or risk bankruptcy January 1st, what should the answer to that question be? The answer to that question should be, let Messi negotiate a deal, let Messi sign that contract with whomever, Manchester City, and then let him go, and at least you get some money back. I remember a club, January transfer window, or even in the summer transfer window, that was interested in Lionel Messi, and the release clause that was 9 figures to the left of the decimal place could have been activated by this club, but it wasn't. You had the chance to sell him then. You didn't. You're in financial peril, and you still are. Now you're in a situation where your star can basically walk away if he feels like it. And how much money would you get then for not having negotiated a pre-contract or extended a deal and made sure that you could have gotten money back in return? How much would you be getting now if Messi signs a pre-contract? I believe it's that much.
Yeah.
That much right there. So what Barcelona has done under Bartomeu, who, by the way, buried the lead when he announced he was resigning and said that, oh yeah, by the way, I signed us up for that European the big European Champions League or whatever. It's like, yeah, I resigned because, you know, I don't want to go to the vote of confidence, whatever. I don't want to go to an election. And by the way, I signed the deal for us to be in that European Super League. That went over well. It's just, there's too much in play right now for Barcelona that's going poorly. You got to cut your losses. I mean, who can you sell between now and the end of the calendar year to get you anything close to being solvent? I mean, you're facing bankruptcy. Barca is facing bankruptcy.
Who would have thought that?
The first of the year, because you were moronic in your dealings with finances, and your ego kept you from getting a pretty penny for your star. So what are you going to get in return? A whole lot less than that.
Carmen, same thing. Like, what do they do? Do you even go and sell Coutinho maybe just to make
I've
something?
from the beginning that I don't think Messi's going anywhere, and I see scenarios where I mean, I think the economics of the situation is obviously vital considering Barca's status, but I think that that's repairable. And I know.
Oh wow! Okay.
Repairable. I do think it's repairable. I think that the selling and the marketing of Lionel Messi is the savior of Barcelona. I think that
200 million in an immediate hole.
that's nothing. I hate to say it, but that's nothing. I hate in the world of soccer, in the world of football, 200 million is for me is a toss in a coin in the fountain. So I think that they make that up. They make that up from Lionel Messi staying. I just think that there's so many scenarios where he can be the savior again of Barcelona, and I just don't think that the situation is so dire as we're all making it out to right now. I think that Barcelona, as a footballing icon, as a footballing like it's the monarchy of football. I think that's all protected. It's all protected, and I think that getting rid of Bartomeu, even he says that he resigned. I don't see that. Is just a fixing of the problem, and I think that for whatever reason, Messi will stay. Messi will be their savior. And I still think that they have a very good chance to win La Liga this year and do well, because I mean, 200 million is something they get by selling 20,000 jerseys of Lionel Messi. Or maybe they could sell Coutinho, who's been again a disappointment.
You're not going to get 60 for him. Transfermarkt has him labeled at 60 right now, but you're not going to get that for him in this marketplace.
Lucky if you get 40.
I don't think they need. I don't think that 200 million is that big of a obstacle for a team like Barcelona, right? That's the way I see it.
It's interesting.
Mark the tape, Giancarlo.
Because Messi
marked the tape last time when they were saying he's gone. Do you remember that? And I said he's not. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And I stick by that. He's not going anywhere just yet.
The only thing about that is like Messi, if he didn't do that interview with Goal and saying that he wanted to leave from before, I would have said, okay, maybe you could market it, make like a New Jersey campaign, like something gold where everyone will go to the store and start buying them. But even if you do a New Jersey thing with Barcelona, Messi already said he wanted out, and that just brings the value of the whole situation lower. He's counting down the days, I think, till January. We'll see him that first offer pre-contract.
Argentinian national team, just like So I don't know. Moments, and social media is so explosive. But I just think that the calmness, or the when everything comes to the surface, Lionel Messi will be the savior of Barcelona again, on and off the field.
Hopefully, for Barcelona's sake, that's what happens. Because I think if they handled it like Real Madrid handled Ronaldo when he came up to them and said he wanted to leave, he wanted to go to Juventus, they actually got a lot of money back out of him. I think they missed an opportunity here with Messi. They could have got a lot more than what Real Madrid got for Ronaldo. And I think just this is this, you can't repair this until Messi retires, this relationship. Carmen, you seem to think they can. Have to see on that. There's still 2 months for that to happen. But as we close out here, John, how can we follow you on social media?
Easiest way is on the Twitters at OSG Nelson. And hopefully that there are more folks that will follow me so I can follow them back, so I can actually follow more than 5,000 people, because Twitter has locked me at that number. So at OSG Nelson on Twitter, at Soccer Down Here. SDH Network available on iOS and Android through the SDH app, because if it's free, it's me. Therefore, it is me, Jason Longshore, and myself, and Nick Alifi, Jared Smith, Jessica Charman, Cast of Thousands, Kelly Francis, doing everything down here with the SDH Network. At Soccer Down Here on Twitter, at OSG Nelson on Twitter.
Yeah. And Carmen, how can we get you to that 5,000 number?
Sacco on Twitter.
5,000. I'm not sure I have 5. Hey, what are you wasting your time on me for, Giancarlo? What are you wasting your time on me?
You're gonna get everyone following you after this episode. Now all of John's network is gonna go hit your DMs.
To the top of the Serie A table on Saturday for at least 24 hours. For at least 24 hours, they'll be top of the table after they beat Udinese tonight.
Sounds good. Look forward to that. And also, I'd like to thank Matthew Arnone, free agent in the CPL, for joining us earlier, talking about Mineframe. You can also follow him and Mineframe on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Guys, I'd like to thank you both again, sharing your time. Another week of soccer talk, and hope you both have a great weekend.
Be good.
Take care. Take care, Johnny.